Global Times, 27 October 2022, Vikrant, better capabilities or not enough capabilities a Catch-22? China is quickly building a fleet of aircraft carriers to station in Hambantota and Gwadar, Pakistan. The Indian Navy just put into service the INS Vikrant, a 42,800-ton ship that is one of its giant-ever warships. It's the second aircraft carrier to be named Vikrant, a name that means stepping beyond or courageous. The Vikrant is 262 meters long and 62 meters wide, so it can hold about 26 MiG-29K fighter jets, 4 Ka-321 aerial early warning helicopters, or 4 MH-60R multirole helicopters. Reports also say that the Indian Navy wants Rafael-M and F-18 Hornets. But this hasn't happened yet because the ship has to go through a long cycle of sea trials. India's future aircraft carrier force and the need for strategic flexibility. The INS Vikrant, which took almost 23 years and cost $2.9 billion, shows that India wants to be able to change its plans quickly. Iskander Rehman of the Institute of Defence Studies and Analysis in New Delhi wrote an article in 2010 called India's Future Aircraft Carrier Force and the Need for Strategic Flexibility. In it, he says that India had hoped to have 3 aircraft carriers, one on each coast and one in reserve. The Indian Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, called the INS Vikrant a way to Atmanirvada, or independence. It is made up of about 75% indigenous parts. Modi said that Vikrant was a sign that India was regaining its lost power and that the new ship was a sign that India was leaving behind the last spots of slavery. Vikrant, which went live on September 2, 2022, has been called a game-changer because it will allow India to play the role of net security provider in the area for which it has made itself responsible. People also say that the carrier results from India becoming more maritime conscious. Should India get an aircraft carrier? If so, what kind should it be and why? Such questions have been asked not only at the inauguration of the new aircraft carrier but also a long time before India's strategic direction started to see such ships as essential to protecting the country's interests. Arming Without Taming, India's Military Modernization, a groundbreaking book by Stephen P. Cohen and Sunil Dasgupta that came out in 2010, looked into the reasons behind India's military buildup, which they said had no clear goal or direction. As a hostile China is now beyond the horizon. Cohen and Dasgupta notice, India's military modernization suffers from weak planning, individual service-centered doctrines, and disconnect between strategic objectives and the pursuit of new technology. The two say that India's plans to buy aircraft carriers are not in line with what is happening on the ground or the upgrading needed to deal with new threats. Today, people around the world are more interested in using drone warfare to fight expensive, capital-intensive warships, as seen in the Ukraine-the Russia war. The carrier's addition to the Navy results from a long strategic debate about the country's plans or hopes to become a world player. But to make that happen, they would need ships much bigger and stronger than the 42,000-ton Vikrant. As Ashley J. Tellis points out, this would at least need a carrier that weighs more than 65,000 tons and has the same ability to fight in the air as jets on land. India wants an aircraft carrier of this size, the IAC-3. Still, it's hard to say how it would operate compared to Vikrant because of the choice of fighters, the long process of building a carrier and getting it approved by the sea, and the complicated Indian bureaucracy. Due to the long-standing competition between India and Pakistan, India's decision to send its carriers to fight Pakistan could be seen as a form of strategic coercion or compelling. It is most dangerous to be around China and its line of aircraft carriers, which will soon be based in Gwadar. With what Vikramaditya and Vikrant can do now and how the Arabian Sea is shaped, sending out carriers could be a significant risk that the leaders of the Indian Navy might not be ready to take. Carriers with weak and limited AWACS on land mean that the Pakistani Navy and Air Force would wait for the right time to strike against the Indian carrier battle groups, alone or with other parties, in any future naval war. The Indian Navy doesn't know Vikrant's operating future because it is exceedingly vulnerable and poorly at its job. Vikrant is a newer ship in the service, but it still has an old design. This could be seen more as a symbol than a power, and its use in war is more of a puzzle than a capability. The last lines of Crimson Tide make this problem clear: the Indian Navy and the Indian military community will have to deal with it for a long time after Vikrant's official tour of duty ends in 12 to 18 months. India is getting ready for China to be a real threat.